Thanks for dropping by today. I'm going to describe two illnesses for you, one that comes out of the ancient world and one that comes out of our modern world. Neither one of them have a cure, but they're very devastating, and I want you to listen to what I'm going to tell you. I'll begin with the one in the Bible first. Matthew chapter 8, beginning at verse 1. Listen to these words. Jesus came down from the mountain with cheers of the crowd still ringing in his ear. Then a leper appeared, and he went to his knees before Jesus, saying, "Master, if you want to, you can heal my body." Jesus reached out and he touched him, saying, "I want to do that. Be clean." Then and there, all signs of leprosy were gone. Jesus said to him, "Don't talk about this all over town. Just quietly present your healed body to the priest, along with the appropriate expression of thanks to God. Your cleansed and grateful life, not your words, will bear witness of what I've just done." Now let me describe for you leprosy in that ancient world. I just told you the story of a man with leprosy in Jesus' life. Both Mark and Luke tell this very same story in their books, and all three writers give the same information. They tell of the man's disease, and they also tell of Jesus' description to heal it. What they leave out is the man's name, his family, his background, and the description of the man's illness. And this story is really very simple. There's a compassionate touch. There's an appearance by this leper. There's one request. He receives just a touch. And with the touch, his life is changed forever. Let me describe the disease of leprosy. Leprosy in the New Testament was the most dreaded disease on earth. The human body suffered drastic changes and went through horrendous conditions. The body became a mass of ulcers and decay. It begins with the fingers curling up and becoming gnarled. The skin of the body begins to discolor and smell in its decay. Lepers find that their nerve endings on their hands and their feet have been destroyed, leading to finger loss and toe loss. Often a leper loses his whole hand or his foot. One doctor calls it death by inches. If those that are the physical conditions, let me tell you some of the social conditions. It was just as bad, just as severe as the physical. The disease is considered very contagious. The leper had to be quarantined, banished to the leper colony. In Scripture, the leper was the victim of ultimate outcast. No leper asked for his condition. He didn't go out of his way to try and catch leprosy, to be infected. He had no idea the depth of rejection that he would receive because he had that disease. Suffering avoidance for the rest of his life by his loved ones. He no longer had a future. He couldn't keep a job. He was soon forced to face the truth. Life would never be the same again. That was the leper. Infection can lead to damage of the nerves and the respiratory treatment and the tract, skin and eyes. This nerve damage results in a lack of ability to feel pain. You don't feel any pain. It'd be as if he could take that hand of his, leprous, put it over a fire, and he wouldn't feel the pain of that heat or the burning. Leprosy has affected humanity for thousands of years. It gets its name from the Greek word lepra. Lepra is a word that means scabs or scale. Leprosy has historically been associated with social stigma. The average incubation period, once you try and you're infected, is 5 years. Here in our story, we have a leper, unnamed, not sure of his age, but certain of the disease. And then a leper appeared and went to his knees before Jesus. Picture this poor, desperate soul. No one had touched him for years. No one had given him even the warmest embrace. This man was never allowed on the streets. Who let this man out of the leper colony? He wasn't allowed in church. Rabbis kept their distance from him. He wasn't welcome to come even back to his house where he had been infected. Maybe he was married. Maybe he had children. He couldn't go back and see his kids or his wife again. They weren't allowed to by law. The priest didn't touch him either. He looked at his hand wrapped in a rag. His face was covered with sorrow. He had hanging around his neck a bell, and that bell kept ringing. He had to ring it in public, and he had to warn the stranger as they came by, "I'm unclean, unclean, don't come near me." With that loud voice, he had fended off the stranger. He was constantly shunned, sometimes targeted by stones. Our society has convalescent homes for the elderly. They have schools for the handicapped. They have centers for the addicted. They have prisons for the criminals. Lepers in Jesus' day lived in gravel pits, landfills, and garbage dumps. They lived alone, infected by fear and rejection. He was repulsed by those who saw him. And in the ancient world, that society, they knew that he had sinned because that's where they pinned the cause. Some blamed his parents. He probably walked the road one day leading back to his house that he had left before he went to the leper colony. And as he was getting near, he knew that he couldn't see them ever again. He had heard, however, that there was a new rabbi in town. He made a risky decision. I wonder if that rabbi, who doesn't know me, I wonder if he'd receive me if I come and meet him. What have I got to lose? He calls himself the Son of God. He'll either hear me completely, or he'll then totally reject me. I'm going to take the risk. Those were his thoughts. He came to Jesus, a defiant man, desperate for answers. He didn't come to Jesus by faith. He came as an infected man, even angry, probably. He was told by all religious leaders that the calamity that came upon him was wrought by God. God put it on him, and God was the one to be blamed because of his sin. So desperate was this man. God, he thought, if I come to him, and this man, the rabbi, is a representative of that God, well, he's either going to fix it or he's going to end it. Let me describe the meeting. Matthew chapter 8, verse 2. And then a leper, he appeared, and he went to his knees before Jesus. This poor man had been downcast for years with the illness. He couldn't even give Jesus eye contact. He went down on his knees, looking at Jesus' knees and his waist. He simply fell. And then came the words out of his mouth. Lepers could talk. This leper, here's what he said: "Master, if you want to, you can heal me. I'm told that you heal people. Could I be one of them? Would you heal me, my body?" Could bolder words ever been spoken? He had never repeated those words ever in his life up until now. No one would understand him if he did repeat them. What did Jesus do? Jesus looked at him and he said, "I will." His words were as tender as his touch. "I want to," said Jesus. "Be clean." Suddenly, energy flooded his body. In an instant, in a split second, he began to feel warmth where he had felt nothing but numbness. He felt strength in his arms and legs where there had been nothing but paralysis. His back straightened out, his head lifted. He had been looking at Jesus' belt and his feet. Now he rose to his feet, and he stood and looked at Jesus eye to eye. He saw his smiling face. Do you know what I think Jesus did? He took his hands and he cupped this man's cheeks. And this man, being hugged, he could feel Jesus' breath. And then he said to him, Jesus did, "Don't let anybody know what I've just done. You go show yourself to the priest and offer the gift Moses commanded for the people who are made well. This will show the people what I have done." Picture the scene. This poor leper had been the object of rejection all his life, unclean. Can't you see that I'm ringing a bell, warning you to stay away? Jesus didn't call him unclean. Will you heal me? He cried. Jesus said, I will. Be clean. And he was healed. This poor fool, unworthy of the touch from a fellow human, but now worthy of a touch from God. Immediately the man had been healed from his hideous disease. The infection was banished. The treatment just by a touch. Well, you out there that are listening to me, you felt the power of a godly touch. When your mother saw you with the measles and you were running a high fever, who was it that touched you? It was your mother. Do you remember the day when your teacher touched you and taught you how to read? You didn't know how to read, but that teacher said to you, you're going to be a wonderful reader one day. Maybe it was your pastor and you'd suffered a stroke. You're in the hospital and he came in and he took your hand that was now paralyzed and he said to you, is it ever nice to see you again? Let me touch you. I've missed you. Many of you have given a godly touch. You've prayed over the sick. You've ministered to the weak. Your hands have written those letters of hope to people that never had any hope. You've dialed the phone. You've baked the pies. You served the dinner. You've learned the power of touch. I'll bet this leper, after this had all been over, he climbed to the highest hill outside the village. And there on the edge of the precipice, he took that bell off from around his neck and he slung it over the edge of the hill, never to be seen again. And then as it fell away, he couldn't wipe the grin off his face. Now let me tell you the description. Not in the ancient world, but in the modern world. Another illness that I know a lot about. I want to talk and compare the lesson of leprosy to the disease of schizophrenia. It's a serious mental health condition that affects people that think and feel and behave. Its result is a mix of hallucinations, delusions, and disorganized thinking. I began this lesson by describing the ancient disease of leprosy. Well, this disease in our modern way is just as bad. I know all about it, and so does my wife. Do you know why? We have a son that has schizophrenia, and he's had it now for over 30 years. He was struck down at the age of 25. He's now in his mid-50s. His hallucinations involve seeing things, hearing things, and voices that aren't observed by anybody else. The delusions and disbeliefs are things that aren't true, but he thinks they are. People with schizophrenia lose touch with reality. They can't hold a job. It makes daily living very hard. They need a lifelong treatment, includes psychotic medication that doesn't work, and the side effects can be very devastating. Psychiatrists don't know how to really treat schizophrenia. People with schizophrenia, they think they're being harmed and they're being harassed when they're really not. They turn on the friends that they have made, and they don't have many friends. In their minds, someday they're going to become famous. Have you ever noticed that many of these terrorists that come into a school and they shoot up a whole classroom with children with a long rifle, they're schizophrenics. They have a mental illness, and they go in there and they think that God has told them in their mind to get even. Other days, they think of a major disaster it's about to occur, and they live on that. All those voices in their head, they're not real. It's hard for people with schizophrenia to talk to other people. The answers they give is not the question that you ask. Their speech is all mixed up. It's called word salad. It's like a salad that you have mixed up, and that's what their mind and their voice and their words declare. They suffer from extreme, unusual motor behavior. It may be childlike. It could be silliness one minute, or it could be agitated for no reason the next. One moment they're crying, and another minute they're laughing. And then they find it hard to do tasks. My son is a university graduate with a performance major in violin and viola. He's an excellent musician. But now he has the same instruments, but the voices in his head are telling him, don't play it anymore, Dean. You're not worthy of this instrument. Put it away. Don't touch it again. Often people with schizophrenia don't bathe. They can't make eye contact. They don't show a lot of emotion. They often can't feel pleasure, and they lose interest in their everyday activity. People with schizophrenia are usually diagnosed in their late teens or maybe their early 20s, up to the age of the mid 30s. They don't do well in school. They have trouble sleeping, feeling irritable, depressed, no motivation. Science is now finding that marijuana can be a trigger to bring on schizophrenia. So, those of you that are out there that are on drugs, stop it. Get rid of them. You don't know where this could lead you. No one knows the cause of schizophrenia. Research tells us it's a mix of genetics, brain chemistry, and environment. Studies have shown that this illness, there are changes in the brain structure. The central nervous system is destroyed, and it's now become a brain disease, and there's no sure prevention. The best way that I could describe it for you is this. If you're driving home and you're coming to your garage and you hit that button up there on your car uh, windshield, and when you hit the button, you're hoping the garage door will open. Well, it doesn't. You hit it again, it still doesn't open. So what has it done? The circuitry inside your house has all been changed. And instead of opening the garage when you push the button, you just turned on your microwave or the big burner on your electric stove. That's schizophrenia. You have in your brain millions of transmitters. It's an electric current, and that electric current has been crossed, and it's been cross-threaded. And as a result, those connections are not made anymore. And science does not know how to put that back together again. That's my definition of what you think schizophrenia is. My son lived with my wife and I for many years, and it was really hell on earth. Let me describe an illustration. He'd get up in the middle of the night, take his car, and drive off and not tell us where he's going. And we'd wake up in the morning, his bedroom would be empty, and he'd be gone. We wouldn't hear from him for days. And then suddenly I would get a phone call from him that he's away off in the wilderness someplace, stuck in a ditch. Can you come and get me, Dad? And I'll go and pick him up. His car's been all messed up. Bring him home. But on the way home, you could tell he'd been off his medication. And he told me some of the most wicked things that I could ever hear out of a man's mouth. He accused me of everything. I'd had affairs with the girlfriends that he had dated in high school. I even had a child by one of them. He even mentioned the child's name. I said, Dean, that did not happen. Your father didn't even know your girlfriend. Yes, you did, Dad. Another day, he attacked my wife, and my wife had to lock herself in the bedroom. And in the bedroom, she picked up the phone and she called 911 and she called the police. They both came. 2 vehicles to the front door of our house, the ambulance and the police car. In the police car, we had 2 ladies, lovely police officers. Something about my son that deals with police officers that are female. He does a better job than with male. Anyway, that female officer said, Dean, I want you to come downstairs now, and we're going to get help for you. The ambulance is here. You're going to the psych ward at the hospital, and we're going to work on that schizophrenia, and we're going to make it well. Well, he came downstairs. He brought his little bag, and as he was leaving, they had to handcuff him. He said to me over the handcuffs, he called me by my name, Ron. He didn't call me Dad. And he said, Ron, I can't believe you'd abandoned me and locked me up in jail. I said to him, son, I'm not locking you up. Schizophrenia is doing that. It's now doing its job, and we're going to make that well. And I'm going to be right beside you. Your dad's touch will not leave you. I'll be right there too. If the medication doesn't work, I know your dad will. Well, he did go. I can't tell you how many times over the years in all the hospitals in our city of Calgary, my wife and I have spent hours dealing with that subject of schizophrenia and psychiatrists that really haven't been a lot of help at all. Do you know, sometimes I find people give you some strange answers, just like they did back in Jesus' day to this poor leper. He didn't want to get a visit from his pastor. He didn't want to get a visit from his priest. He didn't want to get his visit from anybody. He was unclean. He lived in a garbage dump. I've had friends of mine try and give me snake oil as something to help my son get better. And these are good, intelligent people. I'm talking about professors at university that I'd studied under. And they would give me a recipe of what I could give my son to be better. And it was nothing but snake oil. None of it worked. And I had to be kind. I wasn't cruel. I didn't reject them. I could have wrung their neck. But I kept quiet. And there we had to live with what we saw. Now, in our story, this leper was touched and he was healed. One day when I was walking through the house, my son was having lunch. And he prayed a lovely prayer of table grace, thanking God for the food. And then I overheard him say this as I walked by: God, could you give me my dad's brain for just one day to see what it's like to be normal again? I'll never forget that. I'm still praying that one day my son will be healed. But you know what? That may never happen. His healing may not take place until I reach the other side. He lives on AISH. Do you know what that is? Assured Income for Severely Handicapped. It's a little pension that the government issues for those that are in a condition like his to live. And I'm grateful for that, because if I didn't have that, when I die, that boy would live under a bridge and nobody would care. But at least now he's in a group home. He's got wonderful help around him and he seems to enjoy himself there. And it seems to be working. But you know what hurts? I didn't think I'd ever live to see the day when I'm going to have my tax dollar support an issue that they would have for an individual in Canada to commit suicide. In other words, the government will pay you to die. It's called MAID. My son has heard about that, and many a day we'll talk about him wanting to commit suicide. And I'll say, Dean, you're not going to do that. I didn't bring you into the world for you to die first and you on the other side wait for me. I'm going to be on the other side waiting for you. Please don't disappoint your dad by leaving. Well, I think I've talked him out of it. I hope I have. What has the lesson taught us? This lesson has taught me some wonderful things. I think one of it is Jesus' touch is very important to me. I don't have the healing power that he does. But you know, I have the power that when I touch, people know that I care. And if that's all that comes out of this schizophrenia for me, that's what I want. I want to be a better pastor. When I visit, I want to be better. And I think my son has made me a lot better, understanding the needs and the pain that others go through. That's what I want to learn for myself, and that's what I want to teach you. So in this lesson, this prayer for me is all of you. Maybe you've got a prodigal in your family. Maybe you've got divorce in your family. Maybe you've got an unwanted pregnancy in your family, cancer, dementia, cerebral palsy. Maybe somebody in your family has polio. Maybe they're blind or they're deaf. Don't stop praying for them, and don't stop touching them. You be right beside them and watch what happens. You know, they may not change, but you will. And you'll be a better person after you're all done. I think I have. I can thank my son for things that I would have never learned in seminary, never learned in university, never learned from a professor, never learned from my parents. One of the difficulties I've learned is that many with schizophrenia, they have a very high IQ. And when you think of that capacity, what they could become, there's a young man, my son, in his mid-50s, in the prime of his life, and there he is now spinning his tires. That really bothers me. But I'm not going to leave him. He's still going to have my touch. I can't give him my brain for just a day, but I can give him my love for eternal life. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I want you to do that too. If this lesson has taught you anything, you're going to be a better person because you cared for somebody else. That's enough for today. Thanks for coming by. I'll look for you next week when I see you back.